Welcome back to the pod, everyone, and thanks for tuning in for Foot's sake. You better believe I'm going to get my money's worth out of that pun. Anyways, let's get into the biggest news of the past couple weeks, which is Newcastle getting taken over, the financial takeover. British businesswoman Amanda Staveley has been looking to buy the club for probably going on 3 years now, and has finally found a partner to do so in a Saudi-backed group chaired by Mohammed bin Salman. So needless to say, there's going to be a lot of money coming into that club, and the possibility of them becoming, the next PSG or Manchester City is looking pretty likely. So let's get right into it. Will, tell us what you think the future holds for Newcastle United.
Well, it's going to be a process, and I remember watching Amanda Staveley's interview, and she said all the right things, taking things step by step, and I guess it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Have they done their homework? Do they not? Do they make sure they don't end up like clubs like a QPR or Portsmouth or Blackburn Rovers, things like that? So she said the right things, but right. I think it's gonna be in stages. I think right now the first step's gonna be make sure they stay in the Premier League because they're down there.
Yeah, they're right now in the relegation zone and yet to have a win so far this season. So
yeah, that's going to be probably the key objective, and in order to do that, it's probably going to be go for the manager because let's face it.
Right.
Steve Bruce is what? Under Steve Bruce the last couple of years, I think they finished 12th and 13th place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're always like just above the relegation zone generally or lower mid-table. But yeah, they haven't really been able to get into those at least Europa League positions, which is what they would be aiming for. So
I think right now it's just survival, and then because I think Aston Villa were in a similar situation where they just I remember that season they spent like the whole time in the basement, but then last day managed to get out, and then you saw what happened. They were able to build on that, so that's probably what I think they're looking at. But at the moment, let's be honest, Steve Bruce he's on borrowed time, and after today's game, I don't think that's gonna.
Yeah, no, they aside from that early goal, they looked pretty just lifeless against Tottenham. Didn't have much to say once Tottenham got their goals. But also the amounts of players that we'll probably see leaving that have probably seen their time at the club come and go. Who do you think are some of the players that are going to be part of the team going forward, and who are the ones who are definitely probably seeing their way out?
Well, for one, staying, Alan Saint-Maximin. He's pretty much the only real creative spark they got. Callum Wilson, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be an asset. Miguel Almiron, I think he's someone who could probably benefit from a different manager.
Yeah, he's looked good so far.
And I'd say Jamal Lascelles. I don't think he's going to immediately get shipped on. I think he'll slowly along the way once they start getting better players. So I think those are the players. And Joe Willock. He just got there, and he's a young guy.
Right.
He's shown that I think, what was it, when he was on loan last season, when he got loaned out from Arsenal, he scored like 7 goals.
Yeah, he was great last season.
Still a young guy, and I think, him and Almiron, I think if they get the right manager, they'll benefit. And honestly, as far as leaving, well, one player already comes to mind, Joel Linton.
Yeah. Ever since he's been bought, it's been nothing but underwhelming, I think it's fair to say.
But yeah, I could see him, guys like Matt Ritchie, the Longstaff brothers. Well, I take that back. Maybe the younger one might get a chance, but everyone else, let's be real. I made a joke with my friends earlier. I was like, let's be real. 3/4 of that team's not going to be there next season.
Yeah, and the guy got sent off today, John Joe Shelby, who's always had a temper. He got 2 yellows in a couple of minutes this past game, but
he's I'd say he's in limbo because he can play some pretty good balls, but like you just said, that temper thing.
Yeah.
Will a manager come in and say, maybe I can do something with this, or say, you know what, I'm
just get that attitude out of here.
Exactly. Yeah. So that'll be interesting.
As far as players coming in, we've seen them linked to Anthony Martial so far and a couple other ones, but it looks like maybe they're going to start picking from the guys who aren't getting enough playing time from their other clubs.
I'm laughing at because when you mentioned players linked to him, on Twitter, everyone went crazy and thought this was going to be a real life FIFA. But yeah, I was going to say realistically, that like you said, Anthony Martial, that sounds like that's the type of signings they'll go for. Players who will definitely be a step above what they've got, but they can realistically bring to the club to make sure they survive and kind of slowly get them up to that next level.
Score some goals finally.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the matches of the week really was Manchester United versus Leicester. It ended 4-2 to Leicester. But, man, if you guys didn't watch it, definitely be worth going back and watching the highlights. The first two goals in particular are goal of the season contenders, in my opinion. But, yeah, we've seen Leicester, who have struggled really at the beginning of the season, really start to play their way into it. And Manchester United, on the other hand, really starting off strong with Cristiano Ronaldo and then kind of looking very just boring and doesn't have a lot of ideas, I guess. I don't know. What do you want to start with first? And let's start with Leicester. Yeah.
Well, you know what? They've had a kind of a bumpy start. Yeah, and to be fair, they've had some injuries. I think they still got some players out.
Yep.
You know, Wesley Fofana being the big one. Mm-hmm. And I believe
Johnny Evans. This was his first game back from.
So yeah, I mean they've dealt with some injuries, and I think Madison had been dealing with some as well. So
he's kind of always does. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the story of him. But I think we all know that Leicester have the quality. They've had some bad luck with injuries, but I think once as the players are coming back, you see this is the Leicester we know, the Leicester that can punch above their weight, break into that top six and maybe that top four. But credit to them, they managed to get a well-needed result right now.
Yeah, it was a big win for him. More of a Leicester win or more of a Manchester United loss?
You know, it's got to be a mixture of both because, I mean, I've said that, and I'm standing by this, you know, under Solskjaer, they're not going to go far. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that was because you think about it. Let's say Thomas Tuchel, someone who knows how to make those in-game changes.
Right.
I think somewhere along the way he would have changed things up to make sure that they walk away at 3 points or a draw at worse.
Yeah, that was one really kind of confusing thing watching the game is Manchester United equalized 2-2 at one point in the game, and literally from the next kickoff, Leicester scored again to go ahead 3-2, and Solskjaer just had a blank look on his face, like had no idea what to do, what any changes to make. And I could only imagine a Thomas Tuchel in that position would be up and down the sidelines yelling at somebody, setting somebody straight. But yeah, there just really looks like to be a lack of life and belief in that team, which has all the building blocks to win the league even. So yeah, I'll admit I thought it was kind of harsh going that hard on Solskjaer at the beginning of the season, but I'm starting to come around.
Well, I'll just say this: he'll probably end up going on one of those lucky runs where he just gets the results, because
just enough to keep his job.
Exactly. Yeah. But then again, the luck could dry out this year because you think about it, you got some teams up there this time around that Chelsea looked better. Mm-hmm. Liverpool, they've got most of their players back.
Yeah, man, they had a huge 5-0 win over this past weekend too.
And then if Leicester, if they can get back to form. Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the way, you're going to be,
someone's going to have to drop out of that.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, I can't really say Tottenham because they're kind of like hot and cold.
Yeah, they're kind of in limbo right now.
But, it's just if those results, even if he goes on that good run and they're still find themselves out of, just barely hanging on to that top four or on the outside looking in, mm-hmm. How much longer is he realistically going to stay?
Yeah, yeah. And, speaking of which, we let's do a thing here. There's a couple of, speaking of that, a couple coaches on the chopping block. So let's just take a gander at who might go first. Most of them are from Premier League, but I'm going to throw Ronald Koeman in there too. But between Mikel Arteta, Nuno Espirito Santo, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and Ronald Koeman, who do you think is the most likely to lose their job first?
Ooh. Honestly, I would go with Nuno. I mean, because let's be real. I think Arteta's safe. Like, the people upstairs at Arsenal made it clear they're just sticking with him. I think Solskjaer's kind of sort of in that same bracket.
Yeah.
And
I guess we know Steve Bruce is probably the first one to be out, but we'll put that aside.
And Koeman, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, I've been here. It sounds like it's like back and forth. Like he's on 1 minute he's gone, the next they're gonna stick with him.
He kind of has that Solskjaer thing going on where he just loses a certain amount of games to where the board gets mad at him, and then right when he's about to get fired, he'll pull a couple games out of his hat. Yeah.
So realistically, I say Nuno because although they got the result today against Newcastle, so it wasn't really convincing. I mean, remember they conceded first.
Yeah, yeah. He's also the one who's been hired the latest too. So I feel it was so harsh to fire Nuno this early. But Tottenham really, today aside, have not looked.
So yeah, the first 3 games, I mean, they won, but they weren't convincing wins.
And then dropped the next 3, I believe, and then got back to winning ways today. So it's obviously finding their consistency, and under a new coach, that's to be expected, especially with the way Harry Kane's come into the season, kind of half playing, half not. He did get his first Premier League goal today. But yeah, Nuno could be on the chopping block. I hope not for his sake. I think he's a good coach, and he should be given some time. But who knows? Any one of the, as me as a Barca person, I'm going to say Koeman out at this point. But yeah, especially with their financial situations at the time, I think they're not wanting to pay off a manager who's not even with the club. They're probably just going to let his contract, they can pay him out through his contract. But yeah, we'll see, I guess.
Bet you Barcelona's wishing they would have stumbled across that type of money.
Yeah. They're going to be calling Mohammed bin Salman here looking for a loan. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about Edward Mendy's game, because Chelsea kind of just narrowly squeaked out a 1-0 win at Brentford, thanks to another great volley from Ben Chilwell. But, man, towards the end of the game, and it was all one-way traffic in Brentford's favor, and Mendy came up with some huge saves.
I mean, that's just, it's pretty impressive. I mean, I love these type of stories. I think, not too long ago, he was in an unemployment line in France.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, to be where he's at right now it's impressive. That was a performance. That's a world that gets thrown around a lot, the whole world class tag. But
yeah.
I mean, not just that. I mean, that game definitely, but he's had other games where he's just done those type of saves. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then of course I think his Senegal teammates Sadio Mane and Kalidou Koulibaly came out and said, it's a shame that he's not in that Ballon d'Or, at least the nomination.
Yeah.
That short list, and it's like, you think about it, it's like, why not?
Champions League winner, yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, who else can you really say is like above him right now as a goalkeeper?
As far as current form goes, yeah, it's hard to pick one.
Exactly, and then I think it was Keylor Navas who said that goalkeepers realistically should have their own little.
They really should have their own category.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, but he's been amazing. I mean, you can see the difference he makes back there. I mean, it's just not just the big frame, but just he's a commanding presence. He's just. He seems to be constantly talking back and forth with his back line, and that's what a back line wants, a goalkeeper they can trust, because like, okay, if they make that odd mistake, you feel like, okay, we've got the goalkeeper, and he seems like he's that trusting person.
Yeah. And when Chelsea told Petr Cech, go out and find us a goalkeeper to replace Kepa, and he came back with Edouard Mendy, a name I'd never heard before. I was like, this is the guy? Like we could have gone out and got one of the biggest names, but man, Cech knows how to scout him. That's for sure. I'll never doubt the man again.
Yeah, I mean, he's a former goalkeeper. I guess he knows the game.
He knows in
terms of goalkeepers, but yeah.
Yeah. And Mo Salah is kind of back to his original Liverpool days, goal scoring for him. The past couple of weeks, he's had 2 really kind of just crazy, Messi-like almost goals, where twinkle toes type of thing. But yeah, how dangerous are Liverpool when Mo Salah is on his game?
I mean, they're up there. I mean, this is why I never really put Liverpool in that title bracket, is because, like you just said, Mo Salah in particular, but also, Sadio Mane. If those two, they've got there's an African Cup of Nations coming up.
Yeah.
Those two go. Who do they turn to?
Right.
So, I mean, there's no doubting Mohamed Salah. He's definitely, he's in that bracket as well. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think his contract's winding down.
Yeah, and there's been some Real Madrid links. In fact, there's been a link I saw of Real Madrid trying to offload Hazard in a swap deal with Mo Salah. But I'm sure that's all speculation at this point. But yeah, he's definitely in this form has some clubs circling with his contract negotiation issues. Yeah.
Plot twist. Newcastle comes into the picture.
Oh man.
I mean, you think about it. He's won a Champions League. He's won the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think his focus now is probably going to be more so on international, trying to do something with Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
if they're willing to shell out the money for the wage bill, it'd be possible. I guess.
And then what? Salah is 29.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So do you really think Madrid's going to go for a 29-year-old? Especially when they're focusing on Mbappe?
That's true. And they just kind of made a very similar mistake with Hazard when he was probably 28 or something.
To be fair, Salah does take care of himself. Hazard has always kind of just winged it with his talent. And now, but like you said, I mean, it's just one of those long-term things, which, if I were Real Madrid, I'd be thinking, go with Mbappe. I mean, and hope he turns out like a Benzema or Ronaldo.
Uh-huh.
But we'll see. But yeah, I mean, if I were Liverpool, I'd be figuring out how to nail him down.
Yeah, for sure. The over under for the week, I'm going to go. We can pick a team or a player who's over or underachieving. I'm going with Tanguy Ndombele from Spurs, who ever since moving, I believe from somewhere in France, I'm blanking on it right now. Lyon. Okay, thank you. He's been kind of never really found his place at Spurs, especially under Jose Mourinho. He was, one of those players just like Dele Alli, who was kind of cast out by Mourinho, and honestly hadn't had a great start to the season under Nuno. But he's been getting some chances now, and today he looked fantastic. And I just think the guy deserves some credit. He's had a rough start, and I think could be potentially one of the great talents of the Premier League when he's on his game.
It's a good shout. He's always been a talented player. It's just his problem is he's not a runner. He's not a worker.
Mm.
Hence, I don't know if you remember the stories. I think this was during like the initial part of the pandemic. Mourinho basically took him to the park and was trying to get him to do some more running.
Really?
Yeah, but it's just
I love to be a fly on the wall in that scenario. Jeez.
But it's just, players like that, I think you just got to you got to acknowledge that they're not going to be someone who's going to be up and down the pitch.
Right.
You got to kind of facilitate with them or kind of cut a deal with them, like to try and let them play their game, but also play your game. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's a talented player. Without a doubt.
Similar to Dele Alli in that way, which he doesn't go much up and down, but he has really great technical ability. And
exactly.
Stuff. So we'll see if both of them end up having a spot at Spurs or not, but that remains to be seen. Do you have any over/under achievers this week?
Let's see. You know what? I think with under, I will say. We'll go with it. Leeds. I mean, they did well last season. They impressed, but at the same time, I think they've become predictable, really.
Yeah.
And I mean, initially, it was funny how I said Brighton. They were in my top three. See, I'm not letting myself live that down. But and they're in my bottom three to get relegated. But
they sit at fourth right now.
Fourth.
Who would have guessed that?
Credit to them. Yeah. But Leeds, they just.
Sitting right above the relegation zone right now.
Like I said, 17. I think they just become predictable. I mean, Marcelo Bielsa, he's not going to change anything up. He's one of those managers who's going to live and die by his philosophy.
Right.
And it's just, let's say Newcastle, they get in a new manager, they turn things around.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's got to go down.
They could be in that conversation.
Yeah. Fair enough. So we had one other derby match this weekend in the Premier League. It was Aston Villa against Wolves. Kind of not a tale of two halves, but a kind of crazy comeback. Aston Villa got off to a 2-0 lead, and then in the last, 11 minutes of the game, Wolves came back with 3 goals to win the match 3-2. Especially on the very last play of the game was a free kick that got deflected, like a huge deflection that won the game for them. So, pretty heart-wrenching for Villa fans, but Wolves have been badly in the need of a win. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, like you said, they needed it. I mean, and to be fair, they're kind of sort of like Crystal Palace, maybe not as much with players, but manager. What was the manager's name? Bruno Lage?
Yeah, I think that's his name.
So he came in, had to kind of just. He was kind of unlucky too. I think they had a bad start, but slowly you can look at it now. Things are coming together, and they're not a bad team at all.
They're not, no.
And I think they're a little bit under Lage. They're a little bit different than Nuno, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got a team, and I think looking at that 10th, it's not a bad place for them right now. Aston Villa. They're not a bad team either. I think that was just one of those, like I said, it was a derby. I mean, and clearly Wolves wanted it more, and that's pretty interesting. I mean, I always love a comeback.
Do you feel like Wolves really turned it on in the last minutes, or is it just that Aston Villa's defense collapsed? I'm going a bit of a tangent here, but Tyrone Mings, who's gone called up to England a couple times, has gotten a lot of hype, but he's got a lot of mistakes in his game.
That's always been the story. I mean, I think about the Chelsea game particularly. He kind of died that day.
Oh, that's right. He gave away.
And then, like you said, he does. I mean, he's not a terrible defender by any means, but I get where you're going at. Is he really an international level defender? Because on those big stages, you gotta, especially as a defender. There's very little room for error, and I know where you're getting at. I mean, not a bad defender, but when you're talking about those big stages, he's probably not it.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode, guys. We really do appreciate it. If you want to send us those emails, as always, the email is forfootsakepod@gmail.com, or reach out to us on social media with your questions at forfootsakepod. And as always, hit that like and subscribe on YouTube. That really helps the podcast out. Thank you. We love you, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.